So you know about the birds and the bees. Did you know that you are continuing to learn about them? While we may be able to trace our sexual education back to a classroom or a conversation, our true understanding of physical intimacy comes from the sum total of life, the good and the bad, experiences, comments, feelings, and thoughts. And to be sure, if life is the classroom, it will contain a mixture of truth and error. Perhaps the larger and more important question that frames up sexual education is not the how to be physically intimate, but the why to be physically intimate. If sex is an expression of love and affection, then answering the question, what does love look like, is of utmost importance. The topic of sexuality raises wonderfully the issue of love, and the issue of love raises wonderfully the topic of God, for God is love. His love has been exercised long before man came on the scene. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit love, and they are one. For all eternity they have lived in complete unity. This is oneness. This is true intimacy. In fact, in Deuteronomy 6, God declared his oneness in verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And goes on in verse 5 to unpack love. We are to love God with all of our heart, to love him with all of our soul, with all of our mind, and to love him with all of our strength. Sexuality embodies these four aspects. Our hearts in love, our minds in concentration, our bodies in cooperation, and is knit together in a spiritual connection. Since intimacy finds its model in God, we understand that I am not in the crosshairs of Satan's reproach as much as God is. Satan understands all that is meant by oneness. He loathes the thumbprint of holy unity and God-glorifying love. We can be sure, then, that Satan wants to distort our sexual education. And he has, not by any creation of his own, for he cannot create. He only perverts the good that God has created. And by his perversions, our culture sends many inaccurate messages about sexuality. These messages can be picked up on tabloid headlines while waiting for the cashier at the grocery store. Subtle or not so subtle messages are carried on advertisements which play to our affections. Banter around the water cooler, coffee shop, locker room, and hair salon all sexually educate. Story, drama, and narrative contribute to our sexual understanding when we take in entertainment, most of which are a distortion of a biblical understanding of physical intimacy. The answer to protecting our sexual education is not avoiding wrong messages, because they cannot be avoided. The answer is regular rehearsal of God's design. Consider what results from God's oneness and love. The church. Out of the intimacy of God comes a grace towards mankind. Christ went to the cross because he loved his Father. John 14:31 we read, that the world may know that I love the Father, and as the Father gave me commandment, even so I do. Such love has made a way for remission of sins and settled sons and daughters. Thus believers are holy sexual beings. The answer to our sexual passions is not marriage, as much as it is son and daughtership of God. That they may be one in us as we are one, Jesus said in John 17. After the model of the oneness of the Trinity, God instituted marriage between a man and a woman, and they shall be called one flesh. And out of this oneness, sons and daughters are born. The husband and the wife love each other with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. A love of contentment, commitment, and joy results. This is a biblical view of physical intimacy. In conclusion, it is important that we understand how easily we can be influenced away from a Godward understanding of sexuality. Therefore, we need to intentionally sit under the teaching of the Word as it concerns intimacy and love. And we will find that the greater the biblical view of sexuality, the greater distaste we have for worldly sexual lust. This provides a great deal of hope and help for those of us who are infatuated with sinful sexual lust. Our sexual education, when won back to God, holds the hope of holy fulfillment.